So you can say this is the formula sheet we have on Blackboard, right, in the formula sheet, right? And also these formulas will be given during the test, right? You can download this sheet on Blackboard, right? We have the lecture notes folder, right? Basically, you can download this formula sheet as a reference, right? The first one is forward. For the stock pricing, right? Use what? Use the dividend growth model, right? If we have a constant dividend, right, we call this one as what? Preferred stock, right? Preferred stock. For the preferred stock, right, we know our price will equal to a dividend over R, right? And for the other common stocks, right, when we have the dividend grows with the rate G, right, we have this formula. P0 equal to D1 over R minus G, right? And D1 is the dividend will be paid in the next period. If you don't see the dividend will be paid in the next period, instead you see the dividend just paid or paid last year, right? It will be the D0, right? So D0 must take another step, right? Times what? 1 plus G, right? If you use the D0 times 1 plus G, basically you solve the dividend for what? For the next period, right? So please make sure you read the question in detail, right? To capture the keywords and some manual details, right, will determine which formula you will apply. And for the cost of equities, we will arrange our equations to solve for what? To solve the R, to solve the required of return for the stock. That will be the cost of equity. Return for the investors will be the cost to the company. Right? So you can see when we rearrange these equations, we derive the R equal to what? D0 plus 1 plus G, that's a D1, right? D1 over P0 plus what? Plus G. So this is the cost of equity formulas. When you see the question asks you to solve the cost of equity, and you also see the dividend growth rate and the price in the questions, right? Means you will use this formula, right, to solve the cost of equities. It's D1 over P0, right? This whole ratio, right? Then plus what? The growth rate. For the cost of equities, right? We also have another formulas, right, to solve. If we don't see the dividends are growing, right? And also some companies even not pay any dividend, right? We will use what? We will use the capital asset pricing model, right? Or CAPM models. And these models, right, tells us about what? Cost of equity, right? For the common stock will be what? Risk-free rate plus the beta for this company, right? Times what? Market risk premium, right? What's the market risk premium? Is the expected market return minus risk-free rate, right? Something above something called premium, right? So that's our market return above what? Risk-free rate, right? You can say that's the cost of the equity, right? And also we study the cost of what? Bond, right? Cost of bond is what? Yield to maturity, right? Times what? 1 minus the corporation tax rate, right? We know the bond, the debt, right, has the some advantage, right, to avoid the payment of what? Tax, right? So that's why we have the yield to maturity times 1 minus t tax rate, right? Got after tax, right? After tax cost of what? Debt, right? So we now putting them together, right? We use comprehensive formulas, right, to solve the cost of the capital for the whole firm will be the weight of equity times the cost of equity, right, plus the weight of debt times the cost of debt after tax, right? So this is the weighted average cost of what? Capital formulas, right? So these formulas help us right, to summarize, right, all the costs of the assets into one comprehensive what formulas, right? So that's the most important formula forward for corporate finance, right? So we will have some questions in the final to apply what to apply the WAC formulas, right? And I see one student asked me, what is a common formula? Can you define this common formula in the chat, please? Because I'm not sure what you're asking about, right? What do you mean about common formula? You mean a common stock or what's the else, right? I don't know. So please define what's the common formula, right, in the chat. So let me show some questions, right? For example, we have some examples here, right? But in the final, we have no true and false questions. But here we have some questions, right, for review, right? So these three questions will ask you to determine true or false. Let's see the first question. For risk-averse managers, required return must increase for an increase in the risk. What is the risk-averse measures, right? You see in the when we study the return and the risk, we basically have the three type of the measures, right? One is the risk averse measures, right? One is the risk what neutral, right? Investors, right? The other one is what is risk taking, right? Investors, right? For risk averse, they don't like to take what risk. So for increase of risk, they amount to asking for what compensation of the return, right? So that's called risk averse investors, right? What is risk neutral? Or you can see risk indifferent investors means whether risk increase or decrease, right? These investors are not care, right? They don't care about the risk, right? So they are indifferent of the risk change. And who is the risk-taking investors? These people are what? Are gamblers, right? Or speculators, right? They are enjoy taking more risk, right? Hoping to get some uncertain return, right? So they are risky takers, right? Risk takers. So that's a three type of what? Investors. So common stock formulas, right? Common stock formulas. One is what? I show this one already here, right? Common stock formulas, right? You cannot say, just follow common stock, right? Actually, you should be more specific, right? One is for the price of what? Common stock, right? It's in this one, right? And this is for what? This is for the cost of what? Equities, right? Equities in a accountings, we know shareholders' equities is in a form of what? Common stock, right? So this is the cost of what? Common stock or required of return for common stock, right? This is the price of the what? Common stock, and this is the cost of the common stock. So this is actually the formula for what? Common stock, right? And also the CAPM model should be also used forward for common stock. So when you mention the common stock, actually all these three formulas are relevant, right? So CPM models is also for the equities, right? So risk-free rate plus the beta. Beta measure what? Measure the systematic risk for the company's stock, right? So this is also for the common stock. So basically these three formulas are all for the common stock or shareholders what? Equities, right? E. Right? So based on what the questions ask you about and how information will be given, right, in the questions, you will choose what relevant formulas, right? Okay, so let's go to the next questions. The next questions, the investment A guarantees by the holders of what $200 return, right? Investment B earns $150 or $250 with equal chance. So if you take average, right? So it should be also what? 200 over the same period. So does that mean that both investments have equal risk? It is not, right? You know, even their expected returns are same, right? Are both 200, right? You see, for A investment, it is guaranteed, right? So that's a 200 return, right? For the B stock, there are two possible chances, right? With equal probabilities. So we have a 50% with what? $150 outcome, right? The other 50% will be what? 250, right? So if you do the calculations, will be also what? Will be 200, right? Will be 200. So both investment has the same what? Same expected return. However, what? Risks are not equal, right? You can see now what's the risk forward for the A. How to solve a risk? Risk means what? Means uncertainty, right? You can say our A, you guarantee to have this return. So the risk will be what? 0, right? There's no uncertainties for A, right? But for the B, what's the risk? You can see our formulas here, right? For the sigmas, right, we have the what? Some summations of the probabilities, right, times the Ri, Pi times what? Ri minus its value return, right? Then do what? Then take a square. That's for the variance, right? The variance take a square root will be what? Will be what? Raise, or you can say the standard deviations, right? So let's apply these equations, right, to our case here, right? There are, two possible trend, right, for our B stock, B investment, right? So 0.5, they have the equal chance, means the half, right? So that's the 0.5. 0.5 times what? Times the 150 minus what? 200 square, right? Plus 0.5 times 250, right? Minus 200 what? Square, right? So this is the calculation of the variance, right? Variance take a square root will be the what? Will be the standard deviations. So we have the what? We have the 0.5, and for the 50, take the square will be 2500, right? Plus the 0.5 times 2500, right? So we have the 2500, right? Take a square root will be what? 50, right? So our B asset, right? B asset risk will be $50, and A asset has the risk what? 0, right? So B has a higher risk than what? Than a B based on your calculations, right? Even without calculation, you can determine B has a what? Higher risk because your returns are what? Are not certain, right? And our risk is a measure of what? Uncertainty. So B will has what? A higher risk. But from these questions, I hope you can also capture, right, how to measure what? Risk. Because in the final, there's questions in the multiple choice, right? You need to solve what? You need to determine, right? What is the return? What is the risk, right, for the portfolios, right? According to our formulas, right? According to our formulas.
So, Professor, can I ask you the question?
Yeah, I think you already mentioned 21 is true and 22 is false. You are right.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome. So yeah, I think I should, give you an answer also here, right? So 21st one is the true, right? And 22nd is what? Is false, right? Why this one is false? Because as I mentioned, right, the B has higher risk, right, than what? Than A, right? So this part is not correct, right? So from these questions, I hope you can write down the formula for what? For expected return and also risk. Right? Expected returns can be solved use what? Probability times return do our summations, right? For a risk, we use what? We use the probability times return for each state, and minus expiry return. You solved here, right? Take a square. That is whole summations, right? We'll take our square root. That's for the risk formulas, right? We studied in the chapter return risk and the portfolio diversifications. Right, so please write these two formulas down. 23 is for the dividend discount model, also known as what? The golden model, right? The golden model assuming dividend is growing with a what? Is growing with a constant what? Rate, G, right? But you see in this statement that dividend are constant, not growth rate is dividend. It is not right, right? You know the dividend should be increasing with 1 plus G, right? For any time, right? It grows with the G rate. So dividend itself is growing, right? Growing higher and higher with the time. Dividend itself is not constant, but growth rate is what is constant, right? So this one's also false. So 21 is true, right? 22 is false, and 23 is also what? False, right? If you have any questions about this statement, right? So let me know. Let's go to the next questions. So these questions is for our capital budgeting, 2 chapters, right? So we can see, when we study the project, right, we also determine how to solve the operating cash flows and also the salvage values, right? So these questions, I hope you can catch how to solve the operating cash flows. And how to solve operating cash flows? We know we must to solve what? We must to solve the net income, right? Plus what? Depreciation, right? That's our formulas for operating cash flows, right? So you can see you actually, apply this formula, multiple times when we do our project in Excel. Right? You solve every year's what? Operating cash flow, use this formula. So this is the questions to apply this formula. Jefferson and Sons is evaluating a project. This project will increase the annual sales by what? $145,000, and also annual cash cost is $94,000. The project will initially require 110,000 in the fixed asset, and this one will be depreciated forward for 4-year life of the project. And the applicable tax rate is 32%, right? What's operating cash flows for this project? And in the below is what we have done in the project, right? So I use this one as a reference, right? These two must be very similar, but here we have different numbers. So you can see here, right? Our net income will be what? Will be 145,000, right? Minus what? Let me admit one more student here, right? So 145,000, right? Minus what? The cost is 94,000, right? That's annual cash cost. And also have what? We have the depreciation, right? What's depreciation? You can see here, right? Initial cost of the fixed asset is what? 110,000, and this one will be depreciated forward for 4 years to 20. So divide by 4. So this one you solve what? You solve the, we can call this one as operating income, right? But this one you need to times what? 1 minus the tax rate, right? To solve what? To solve the net income. And net income must apply what? Must adding our depreciation to solve what? To solve the operating cash flows, right? So that's our answer to solve these questions, right? So let me change different colors, right? So you can see here, right? This is your revenue, the sales, right? Sales minus what? Minus the, the cash cost, right? This is the cash cost or you can say operating cost. And don't forget to also minus what? Non-cash cost. This one is the depreciation, right? So this one we solve what? We solve the earnings before the tax, right? Or you can see the EBIT. And this company is not paying any interest expense, right? So EBIT will times what? 1 minus T to solve what? To solve the net income, right? Net income plus the depreciation will be what? Will be operating what? Cash flows, right? So that's how to solve what? Operating cash flows, right? So if you have any questions, let me know, right? So in the final, there will be a question to solve what? Operating cash flows, right? So please write this formula down, right? EBIT times 1 minus T, right? There's no interest payment. So we just directly times 1 minus T will be what? Net income, right? Net income plus the depreciation will be what? Will be the operating cash flow. We studied the three methods, right, to solve the operating cash flows, right, in our class. And this is the most popular way, right, to solve what? Operating cash flow among these three methods, right? So this is very important questions, right? And you can see these questions is available in our homework, and also it is in our second midterm, right? So I see most students you got a very good score in the second midterm, right? So I suppose you solve this question by yourself. That means you should have no problems in the final, right? So if you did not, right, do your second midterm by yourself, but just copy the answer from the online, make sure you will review all these questions, right? Because the questions will be also a reference, right, in the final, right? Yeah, 23rd questions is false, right? Because you say not the dividends are counted, but growth rate of dividends are what are counted, right? Dividend actually is growing, right, every times with a compounding rate G. Okay, so let's follow what? Let's follow questions on the slides. Right now, let me go to the questions we can use right in the Excel sheet. Right, as you know, in the final, right, because you do the questions at home, right, on the computer. So for the convenience, for some questions, maybe you can also use what Excel. Right, so let me show you something on Excel. Right, for the last year's questions, we can handle right for this semester. Last year student, right, we will do these questions, in class, use what? Use the financial calculator, right, or use, the manual calculations. But for these matters, as you know, we do the remote, right, test. So you can do you can use the computer, right, to use Excel. It will be more convenient and more efficient, right? So let me show this one now. You see, these questions, right, a project will produce operating cash flows what? $30,000, right? For what? For 7 years. So basically, this cash flow will operate from the time 1 to time 7, right? So when you read the questions, maybe you can put a paper, right, with you and write this number down. And our initial fixed asset investment in this project will be what? $200,000, right? So that's the fixed asset cost. That's also the value you will do the depreciation, right? And you can see our net after tax salvage value is what? Is $65,000 and will be received during the last year of what? Project's life. So you can say this is salvage value, right? Salvage value will be received on the last year of the project life. So it will be here, 65,000. And what is the net present value of this project if required rate of return is what? 10%. So this is initial cost, right? This time zero's initial cost, and this cash flows for different years, and you know what? You know the 10% what discount rate, right? And you can use what? You can use the NPV functions, right, to solve what? To solve the discounted value for all this cash flow, just like you did, right, in the project, right? Same thing, right? You will use NPV functions to choose all the cash flows into the bracket, right, to solve this NPV, right? So let me show this one here. And I know you guys are very good at these, calculations in the project, right? This is just the second time you review these calculations, right? So I hope you can solve this one exactly as what I'm doing here, right? So you can first create a row as what? As a time t, right? So let me put our tables bigger, right? So you can see this one more clear. And we say this is our, time zeros, right? Cost. That's a minus 200,000, right? And from time 1 to time 7, that is what? 3,000. So let's do the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7, right? And all the cash flows are what? Are 30,000, right? $30,000. And only last year, right, you will also realize what? The salvage value afterward tax, right? So this one should also plus what? This one should plus what you have for the salvage value, right? So 65,000. And we know our discount rate is what? 10%, right? So it's our discount rate, right? So we will solve what? We will solve the NPV, right? And the rate will be 10%, right? And you will choose the cash flow from 1 to 7 into what? Into the bracket, right? Then plus what? Then plus the initial what? Cost, right? So for these numbers, we will have the regular numbers, right? Without what? Without percentage, right? So you will just, transfer this one without what? Percentage, right? So let's drop this percentage to what? Regular general numbers, right? So that's a 20592 15 what? 778, right? You can see that's the answer what? 20592, right? 0.16. So that's the answer C. You can use the financial calculators, right? Use the multiple cash flow key, right? CFT. Once you press CFT, then this one is the CF0, and this is the cash flow for the future, right? So 30,000 will be CF1, right? And FO1 will equal to what? 6, right? There are 6 equal cash flows, right? Then the next one will be what? Will be the 95,000, right? Once you finish the input, you will press NPV key, right? And also, enter the discount rate 10%, right? Then you press the down, then solve the CPT, right? You will get this answer also, right? So, and home, you can choose either way to solve it. Yeah, you can use the calculator, or you can use the Excel. You are fine, right? Both way can solve the same answer. Right? Just make sure you have everything, right, ready before you take the test, right? You should have the either Excel installed, right, on your computer, or maybe you have a calculator with you, right? It's not easy to do this one manually, and so I hope you can, make sure you have the ready, make everything ready before the test, right? So you can use the calculator, right? If you want, use the multiple cash flow key, right, for these questions. Okay, so let's go to the next questions, right? These are the same questions you also have, right, in the second midterm, right? So the all cells considering a 7 years project, and this project requires what? $850,000 for the new fixed asset. And this fixed assets will be depreciated by straight line toward to zero book values over what? 7 years. So means our project will be depreciated gradually until what? 0 on the 7th year. At the end of the project, this fixed asset can be sold for 15% of what? Their original cost. The project is expected to generate annual sales 9 to 8,000, 7 to 1,000 cost. The tax rate is 35%. The required rate of return is what? 14.6%. Right? What is the amount of what? After tax salvage value. For the salvage values, right, it should be what? Should be the market values minus the book value, right? Then times what? 1 minus t, because we need to say what's the after tax, right? Salvage value, right? Salvage value is the difference between the market value of your, fixed asset at the end of the period, right? Minus what? Minus book value still available on the book, right? But you see in the question set, right? When a project end on the 7th year, right? Your assets with what? 0 book values, right? So our book values for this asset will be what? 0, right? What is the market values? What's the market value? How much this one can sell for, right? You can see the fixed asset can be sold for what? 15% of the original cost. So our market values will be 15% times what? 850,000 what? Dollars. That's how much value we can sell this one for on the 7th year, right? And this value will be paid the tax. What's the tax rate? 35%. So 1 minus what? 35%. Right, so let's solve this one here. So we use the 15%, right? Times what? Times the original value of this fixed asset. 850,000, right? Then times 1 minus what? Tax rate, 35%. Right, that's equal to what? That's equal to the 82875. Right, you can see this one here. Okay? And I can show you guys the formula, what I'm typing here, right? The formula, right, text. Right, you see, that's the 50% of the value still have, right? When asset can sell to the market, right? Then times what? 1 minus t. T is the tax rate. And here we have no difference, right? We don't take deductions to minus book value because book value is what? Is 0, right? In the question set, book value is 0, right? So that's why you don't minus anything here. And that's for our what? That's for our after-tax what? Salvage value. All these questions, right? Let me ask you more questions based on this problem. Suppose I use the same questions in the final, right? But I will not asking you after-tax salvage value. Instead, I will ask you what? What is the operating cash flows, right? Can you solve operating cash flows for these questions? So we want to solve the operating cash flow like we did, right, in the last sheet, right? According to our operating cash flows formulas will be the net income plus what? Depreciation, right? What is net income? Net income will be the sales minus the total cost. Sales is what? 928,000, right? And also have the cost what? 921 what? 1,000. And don't forget, we also have what? Non-cash what? Expense, right? What is non-cash expense? It's the depreciation and amortizations, right? And what's the depreciation amount every year? Our total cost for this asset is 850,000. And this one will be depreciated to 0 forward for the 7 years. So what's the annual depreciation amount will be 850,000 divided by what? Divided by 7. Right? So we will minus 850,000 divided by what? 7. Right? So this is the EBIT. EBIT will times what? Times 1 minus what? Tax rate, right? 35% tax rate. And this one will be the net income, right? Net income plus depreciation, 850,000 over 7, right? Will be what? Will be the operating cash flows. So I hope these questions can also help you to study what? How to solve operating cash flow, right? So either salvage values after tax and operating cash flow will be in the final. Please make sure you understanding how to solve it, right? Next one, right? We just solved, right? We just solved, right, from our PowerPoints, right, for operating cash flows, right? And we already reviewed this one, right? And we also use this one to solve operating cash flow. So I will not repeat this one again, right? So let me show the other questions. So these questions for what? Cost of what? Capitals, right? So I try to use this one as an example, right, to review everything in the cost of capital part. So let's say the questions. What is the company's after-tax cost of debt? And which part is for debt? You can see here, right? Bond is a long-term debt. So this part is for what? For the debt. Right? You can say our bond with face value what? 1,000, right? And pay what? Pay the coupon semi-annually, right? 10%. Will be mature in what? 20 years. And also sales forward. $849.54. And with a yield to maturity what? 12%. Okay, now let's solve the what? Let's solve the cost of what? Debt after what? After tax. And you know our yield to maturity is the cost before the tax, right? Forward for debt, right? So after tax cost will be simply what? Yield to maturity what? Times 1 minus what? Tax rate, right? So it will be 12% times what? 1 minus 40%, right? Equal to what? 12% times 0.6 equal to what? 7.2%. That's the cost of the debt after tax. And these questions already give you yield to maturity, right? In a problem given, right? Sometimes we don't know this yield to maturity. You can solve this one what by yourself based on the bond items that are available here, right? So we can do this one here. You see our bond with our face value what? $1,000, right? So this $1,000 is our what? Is our PV or FV. It should be our future values, right? Because you receive this face value on maturity. So 1,000 as what? Future values. And you see the coupon is 10%, but paid what? Semi-annually, right? So 10% coupon rate times 1,000 will be what? $100, right? 100 over 2 will be $50 for each what? Coupon payment. And you can see our bond will be matured in 20 years. So 20 times 2 will be what? 40 period, right? 40 periods. And you see the bond now trading with what? 849.54 dollars as what? As the present values, right? So this is the PV. And this one should be what? Should be negative, right? Then you solve what? You solve the rate, right? And this rate is the semi-annual rate. But for our yield to maturity, it should be doubled, right? So it should times what? Times 2. So let's confirm this one should be equal to 12% or not. I use our Excel sheet. Let me put the numbers here, right? 1,000 as what? Future values, right? And we have the $50 as what? Payment. And 40 as the number of what? Period. And 849.54, right? Minus as what? Present values. So we will solve what? We will solve the IY, or you can say rate, right? CPT, what? IY, right? In your calculators, right? And we will use the rate functions, RAT, rate functions. First, we will input number of the period, 40, right? Payment, 50. Future values, 1,000, right? And also the present values, right? Present values here, right? Let me continue to input, right? Present values this one, right? Future values will be this one, right? The tab will be 0, right? And you will guess the answer. And you can see that will be 6%, right? And our yield to maturities is annual rate, right? So this one should be doubled, right? So 6% times the 2 will be what? 12%. So here's our calculations, right? Below. So please try this one at home. So that's the 12%, right? So 12% times 1 minus 40% will be after-tax cost of that will be 7.2%. Last one, we will continue to solve what? We will solve the, the cost of what? Equities, right? So first, let me erase my inks, right? So make the questions easy to read. Okay, so for the equity part, right, you can see our questions give you what? Give you the cost of the equities in the two parts. These parts, right, we have the company stock beta, and we also have the risk-free rate and the market risk premium. So basically, we can use what? CAPM model, right? CAPM model, capital asset pricing model, capital models, right? CAPM model equal to what? Risk-free rate plus the beta times what? RM minus RF, right? And what's the risk-free rate? It is 10%, right? 10% plus the beta 1.2, right? Times what? RM, you can say our market risk, what? Premium, right? So means the whole bracket right here must be what? 5%, right? So 10% plus 6% equal to what? 16%. As for the CPM models, cost of what? Equities, right? So it should be here, right? 16%. How about we using what? Dividend discount model. For dividend discount models, we have the informations from this part. Right? You see our dividends just paid is what? $2, right? $2. And also the price is what? 27. Growth rate of dividend is what? 8%. Right? So we can solve our cost of equities by use the dividend discount models. I use the R equal to what? D1 over P0 then plus what? G. And be careful here, we have dividend just paid. So this one's D0, not D1. So we have the D0 times 1 plus G over P0 then plus G, right? Dividend just paid is $2 times what? 1 plus G, 1 plus 8%, right? Over price 27, right? Then plus the growth rate. Growth rate is what? 8%, right? So follow these calculations, you can solve what? Cost of the equity use the dividend discount model, right? So let me solve this one here. right? So you can use your Excel sheet or use the financial calculators, right? So after 2 times what? 1.08 divided by 27, right? Then plus what? Then plus 0.08, right? So that's equal to, 16%, right? You can add in more decimals, right, to check your numbers is accurate or not, right? So it's 16%. And you can say the numbers you solve are exactly same as the number or the value you solve in a what? In a CPM models, means your calculations are what? Are consistent, right, for the two models. Last one, we will solve what? We will solve the cost of the capital for the whole company. So you want to pull in both debt and equity, right, into these calculations. Right, use our WACC formulas, right? Our WACC formulas, right? WACC, weighted average cost of capital, equal to the weight of the equity times the cost of what? Equities, right? Plus the weight of the debt times the cost of debt after tax. What's the weight of debt equities? You can say there's no such weight given directly, but you can, based on this dividend to equity leverage ratio, right, to solve the weight. You say D over E equal to 2 over 3. Means in a company's total capitals, right, D will take a 2 slice, E will take a 3 slice. Right? Based on this proportion, you can say weight of the D will be D over D plus E will equal to 2 over what? 2 plus 3 will be what? 40%. Right? And our weight of what? Our weight of equities will be the E over D plus E, right? Will be the 3 over 5, will be 60%. And you can see if you add these two, must equal to what? Must equal to the 100%, right? You see these numbers are what? Are correctly, right, calculated. So 40% what? Weight of actives, right, times the cost of actives, right? You solved in a, 7 and 8, right? Will be 16%. Plus the weight of debt, 60%, right? Sorry, weight of actives, right? I used the wrong number, should be 60%, right? Weight of debt will be 40%, right? Times the cost of debt after tax, right? That's something you already solved, right? Here, at 7.2%, right? 7.2%, right? 7.2%, right? So 60 times 16% equal to what? 9.6%, right? Plus 40 times 7.2, 28, 2.88%, right? So the total will be what? Will be 12.48 what percent, right? 12.48%. That's the answer for the cost of capital for these questions. Okay, so do you have any questions for this one, right? So these questions, we actually review many topics, right, together, right, including stock chapters, right, bond chapters, and also cost of equity chapters, right? I hope you can write down these calculations, right? So you can refer these calculations to solve many problems, right, in the final, right, based on this problem. So please let me know if you have any questions for this one. If you have, right, please raise your hand, right, or you can just type your questions in the chat. So that's for today's class. And I know some students, right, you already, did the homework and did very well in the second midterm. So please don't, leave this homework and test aside, right? You can use that as your resource to do the final review and home. Our final test will be similar to our second midterm, just plus some topics, right, in our midterm test, after second midterm test, right? So please make sure you will review these questions. Okay, before we end today's class, let me add one more questions. Let me add one more questions. So this question is also from the last year's, right, the final. So you can see here, right, you are trying to analyze the following two mutually exclusive projects and also get these informations. Right, so you got these cash flows. And the question asks you, right, what is the crossover rate? I'm not sure. Have you guys watched my video on YouTube, right, for this part, right? In the YouTube, I show how to solve the crossover rate, right, with very, very detailed, right, explanations. If you haven't watched this video, right, you can check that, right, on YouTube. Right? Let me do this one for you, right? So why we need to do the crossover rate? Because for the mutually exclusive projects, mutually exclusive, right? What's the definitions? You can only choose one of them, right? Not both at the same time, because we have the what? We have the limited what? Budget, right? You can only choose either one of them, not both. So for these two projects, they are mutually exclusive. Which one should be better, right? So we can solve the, present values, net present values, and also IR to see which one is better, right? In a traditional way, right? So let me do this one now. So first one, we can type the year 0, 1, 2, 3, right? And for the A project, we also will copy the cash flows down, right? So minus 75,000, right? 24,800, 29,500, and then 45,300. And for the B, right, we also copy the cash flows, right? Minus 75,000, 22,000, 27, 500, and 51, 300. While you observe the pattern for these two cash flows, right, you can see the difference, right? For the A project, right, the cash flows is relatively more more equally distributed than the B. For B, you can see the large cash flows comes late, right? So I think the discount rate will impact these patterns a lot, right? If you have a big discount rate, B will getting worse because you see the large cash flows comes later with a higher discount rate. The B's present value will be smaller, right? But A will be, in the opposite case. And so let me try different discount rate, right? So we can choose a random discount rate, right, to see what's going on with the net present value. So 2%, 4%, or anything, right? That you can try different discount rate. So let's try this one now, right? So this is the random discount rate. So let me put this one bigger, right? Now let's say the NPV, right, for this different discount rate, right, for the A and B project. This NPV for A, right? This is NPV for B. And I know you guys are very familiar with NPV functions, right? So here, just one more time, right? We will do these functions, right? So NPV, we will choose discount rate, right? Now we will choose we will choose the values, right? Then after you choose the values, you will plus initial cost. So this should be should be in numbers and not in percentage, right? So regular numbers. This is for A, and you can choose. You can also solve the B, right? NPV, right? Discount rate and values, and plus plus initial cost, right? And this should be the numbers also, right? So why you can say why our discount is 0%, right? B is better than A. How about we increasing discount rate, right? How about if our cost of capital increasing, right? What happened to NPV? Let's say the other discount rate, right? So we will anchor what? We will anchor the same cash flows. So we just use dollar sign, right, to anchor the whole, cash flows, right, for the columns to do the calculations, right? We use the same cash flows columns, right? Use the dollar sign, right? So this should be the percentage numbers, right? So we will drag this one down. And for this one, right, for this one, in the numbers, right, this one, 4%, right? Okay, so let me solve the others, right? How about this one? We will also anchor the same numbers, right? Anchor means you will apply the same cash flows, right, for the calculations. You see, if I drag this one down, right? What happened, right? You see, at beginnings, right, B is more than A, right? But when our discount rate continue increasing, right? For some certain point, right, A will getting what? Getting better, right? Getting better, right? So that means, these two projects is not always, A is what? Is worse than B. For some certain point, right, B is what? A is better, right? How can we determine which rate will be crossover, both projects, right? It's our, question asked you to solve. Before we solve this one, right, we can show some chart by insert what, a curve, right, for these two lines, right? You see, they will actually intersect with what, this point, right? Before this point, right, B is better, but close this point, right, A is what? A is better. And so these questions ask you to solve what? This crossover what? Point. How to solve this crossover point? We actually show this one in our lectures on YouTube, right? The first one we will what? We will take a difference between these cash flows. So we use this one minus what? This one, right? Same thing for all the cash flows here, right? Then we will use what? IRR to solve this what? This column, right? To solve this differentiate, right, cash flows. And so you can say our crossover rate will be what? Will be 15%. That's the numbers you should solve, right, for these questions, right? 15%. And let me repeat again, right? So first you will solve what? Different the cash flows in the difference, right? You take a difference of the cash flows. Then you will use IR functions, right, to solve what? To solve these cash flows, right? So IR of what? This column, right? That's the crossover what? Rate. So let me explain why we need to do this way. Because IR is the functions to make what? To make the NPV equal to what? 0, right? You know this is the difference between what? Between these two cash flows. So once you apply the IR to these columns, that means you try to what? Try to make the NPV for this cash flow to be what? To be 0. So it means you want to make a difference to be what? To be gone, right? If there's no difference between the two, cash flows, right? Means these two curves are what? Are intersect, right? They have the same what? NPVs, right? So that's the intuitions, right, behind this calculation step, right? So the first step, you take a difference, then you use the IR to solve these numbers, right, for these different 8 cash flows. So that's for our, crossover rate calculations, right? Is equal to the 15%, right? And if you want to make this number with small, decimals, right? You can add in more decimals, right? I mean, adding more decimals equal to the 14.96%, right? So that's equal, that will be the choice word D, right? Let's follow our cost over